You look around at the natural world, and blue seems to be everywhere,
Yes,
right?
it does, yeah.
Sky, the ocean, but it's kind of a trick.
It really
When
is.
you actually dig into how organisms, plants and animals make color, that vibrant blue you see, well, isn't always what it chemically seems.
That's such a fascinating paradox, isn't it? Blue is
Hmm.
so visible, so prominent, yet um, true blue pigment is actually pretty rare in biology.
Right.
We've been looking through quite a few scientific articles and some books on animal and plant coloration, trying to get to the bottom of this.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive then. Let's unpack this mystery. Why is true blue pigment so elusive?
Mhm.
And, how does nature manage to pull off this blue magic trick in so many different ways?
Sounds good.
So let's start with the basics. What makes blue pigment such a biochemical headache in the first place?
Yeah, the scarcity. It really boils down to some fundamental chemistry,
Hmm.
actually. Unlike pigments like, say, green from chlorophyll, or browns and blacks from melanin, which have relatively straightforward biochemical pathways.
Right, we see those everywhere.
Exactly. Creating stable blue pigments is it's complex
Uh,
and it's energetically expensive for organisms.
Energetically expensive, huh? Okay, let's dig into that. What's the specific chemical hurdle that makes blue so difficult?
Well, pigments work by absorbing certain wavelengths of light and reflecting others, right? The color we see is the light that gets bounced back.
Got it.
So blue pigments need to absorb the longer wavelengths, think reds, oranges, yellows, and reflect the shorter blue wavelengths.
Okay.
And achieving that specific absorption requires molecules with very particular, often quite intricate electronic structures. It's about specific arrangements of atoms and electrons.
So it's like you need a really specific, complicated molecular blueprint just to get that blue reflection going.
Precisely. And the energy cost isn't just about the steps in building these complex molecules. It might also involve, the availability of the starting materials, the precursor molecules,
Right.
or even the risk of creating harmful byproducts during synthesis, stuff that could mess with the organism's overall metabolism.
Hmm.
Which makes the few organisms that do make true blue pigment even more remarkable. They've overcome some pretty big biochemical challenges.
And they have to be stable too, right? And not poisonous.
Exactly. Another layer, synthesizing them is one thing, but making sure they're stable and non-toxic within living tissue. That adds another big evolutionary hurdle.
Makes total sense. So given all those difficulties, are there any organisms that actually manage to, crack the code and make real blue pigment?
There are a few. Interestingly, the plant kingdom gives us some notable exceptions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, take the Asiatic dayflower, Commelina communis. It's beautiful, almost electric blue petals. That color comes from a unique pigment right there in its petal cells, a specific chemical compound that the plant actually makes.
Oh, I think I know the one. Really vibrant, striking blue. So that's the real deal, a true blue chemical.
It is. That's a genuine pigment.
Yeah.
And then you have plants like Virginia bluebells, Mertensia virginica.
Oh,
Their anthocyanin pigments can appear blue, but this is often linked to specific pH conditions inside the plant cells.
so it's a bit more conditional, like the acidity changes the color.
Exactly. The acidity or alkalinity of the cell sap influences how that pigment looks, so it's a bit more nuanced there.
So, okay, there are these examples, but it sounds like they're definitely the exception, not the rule. It really highlights how hard it is, at least for plants.
It does.
What about the animal kingdom? Any true blue pigment champions hanging out there?
It's even more limited in animals, actually.
Really?
Yeah. Certain poison dart frogs, like the blue poison dart frog, Dendrobates azureus, they're a fantastic example.
Wow.
Their amazing blue skin is believed to be from specific biochromes, basically, natural colored compounds. But the exact way they produce them or maybe acquire them,
Yeah.
that's still being researched.
So we don't fully know how they do it.
Not entirely. It might even involve their diet. It's possible they, sequester these blue compounds from the insects they eat.
Poison dart frogs. Yeah, that vivid blue is certainly hard to miss. Incredible.
Absolutely. And then in the ocean, some marine invertebrates, like certain types of starfish, also seem to have blue pigments.
Starfish too.
Yeah, but again, similar to the frogs, the precise chemical nature of these pigments is still being figured out. Identifying and, characterizing these rare blue animal pigments is pretty tricky work.
Okay, so it sounds like true blue pigment is just, it's a tough get.
Yeah.
Across the board, plants, animals, it's rare.
Pretty much.
So this must be where evolution gets really clever, right? How does nature create all that other blue we see if it's not usually through pigment.
Exactly. And this brings us to the, frankly, marvel of structural coloration.
Structural coloration.
Oh.
Okay.
Instead of relying on chemicals, on pigments, to
Yeah.
absorb and reflect light, many organisms have evolved to manipulate light itself. They do it using microscopic structures on their surfaces.
Okay, structural. So we're shifting from chemistry to physics now, like physical shapes and arrangements, not absorbing the light with molecules.
Correct. We're talking of intricate physical arrangements of materials that are often transparent themselves, like chitin in insect shells or keratin in bird feathers.
Hmm?
These microscopic structures are shaped and spaced incredibly precisely to interact with light. They use phenomena like scattering, interference, and diffraction.
Scattering, interference, diffraction. Okay, that sounds a bit like my old physics textbook.
Mhm.
Can you break those down a bit more simply? How does that make blue?
Okay, think of it like ripples on a pond, maybe?
Yeah.
If you drop pebbles, the ripples spread out. Where crests meet crests, they get bigger. That's like constructive interference. Where a crest meets a trough, they cancel out destructive interference.
Got it.
Light waves act similarly. These tiny biological structures are spaced just right so that certain wavelengths of light, often the blue ones, bounce off in a coordinated way. They reinforce each other, making the blue super bright.
Constructive interference for blue.
Exactly. While other colors, other wavelengths get canceled out through destructive interference.
Okay. And scattering.
Scattering is more like light bouncing off lots of tiny particles. Think dust in a sunbeam. Shorter wavelengths, like blue, tend to scatter more easily than longer ones.
Right. Like why the sky is blue.
Precisely that principle, yeah. And diffraction is just light bending as it passes around tiny edges or through slits, which can also separate colors.
So it's like a microscopic light show, engineered by evolution right onto the surface of the animal or plant.
That's a great way to put it. Built-in optical engineering.
Give me some vivid examples. Where do we see this really clearly?
Oh, one of the absolute classics is the morpho butterfly.
Ah, yes.
That brilliant, shimmering, almost electric blue on their wings. Zero blue pigment involved.
None at all. Wow.
Nope. If you looked at their wing scales under a really powerful microscope, you'd see these incredible layers. Tiny, sort of tree-like structures stacked on top of each other.
Tree-like.
Yeah, branching structures. And the spacing between these layers and branches is incredibly precise. It's designed to cause constructive interference specifically for blue light waves.
And that creates that intense, shimmery look.
Exactly. That iridescence you see where the color shifts as the butterfly moves, that's a hallmark of structural color caused by interference.
Oh, yeah. Those butterflies are just stunning. The way the blue seems to flash and deepen, that structural color at its most dazzling, I guess.
Definitely.
What about birds? We see tons of bluebirds, blue jays, bluebirds, peacocks.
Yep, birds like blue jays and peacocks are prime examples too. They primarily use structural color for their blues.
How do they do it? Feathers aren't exactly like butterfly scales.
Right. Their feathers contain these minuscule air-filled cavities within the barbules. Those are the little branches off the main feather shaft.
Air pockets, like tiny bubbles.
Kind of, yeah. Microscopic air pockets embedded in the keratin. These cavities are arranged in a specific sort of spongy way that preferentially scatters the short wavelengths of light, the blues and violets.
So it's scattering, mostly for the bird.
Primarily scattering, yes. The structure scatters blue light strongly in all directions, making the feather appear blue.
That's fascinating. I remember reading somewhere, if you, crush a blue jay feather, it just looks dull brown or grayish.
Yeah.
That because you're destroying those air pockets?
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. When you crush the feather, you destroy that intricate air-filled structure. The scattering mechanism is gone.
Ah.
And what you're left seeing is just the underlying pigment, which is melanin, typically brownish or black. The blue was never in the feather substance itself, chemically. It was all about the architecture.
Wow. That's a perfect illustration, really visual, of the difference between pigment color and structural color. Amazing.
It really is.
What about the insect world beyond butterflies? So there's similar light-bending tricks going on there?
Oh, absolutely. The insect world is just packed with examples. Think about many beetles, like the Japanese beetle with that metallic green and blue sheen
Yeah, that metallic look.
that often comes from layered structures in their exoskeletons, thin, transparent films stacked up, causing light interference, which results in those vibrant, often metallic blues and greens.
Okay, layers causing interference again.
Yep. And dragonflies. You often see blue on their bodies or sometimes even iridescent patches on their wings. That can be due to incredibly thin films or fine surface patterns creating iridescence as light interacts with them.
Even dragonflies. And I heard something about tarantulas.
Yes. Believe it or not, some tarantulas have these striking blue hairs. And again, it's not pigment. It's caused by specialized nanostructures like ridges or layers on the surface of the hairs themselves.
Tarantulas.
Yeah.
Nature is wild. Okay, so this structural approach seems, well, pretty successful. A really common workaround for the blue pigment problem.
Definitely a versatile evolutionary strategy.
So what are the big advantages then? And maybe, are there any limitations to using structure instead of pigment?
Well, a major advantage is the sheer vibrancy and often the iridescence you can get. Colors that might be really hard, maybe impossible to make with pigments alone.
That intense morpho blue.
Yeah, exactly. And also because the color can change depending on the angle you're looking from that shimmer.
Right, the iridescence.
That can be really useful for signaling. Think attracting mates with a flashy display or maybe even startling a predator with a sudden change in color. Sophisticated communication.
That shifting quality definitely makes sense for catching attention, or maybe even for blending in if the environment is shimmery too, like near water.
Potentially, yeah. And what about the downsides? Or, limitations?
Good question. Well, these structural colors rely on incredibly precise, delicate micro or nanostructures.
Right, those tiny arrangements. So they can be affected by things like moisture getting into the structure or physical damage if water fills those air cavities in a bird feather, for instance.
The blue disappears.
It can, or it might change dramatically, look duller until it dries out. Same with damage. If you scratch the layered surface of a beetle's exoskeleton, you disrupt the structure and ruin the color in that spot. They rely on keeping that architecture intact.
So they can be a bit fragile, maybe, dependent on staying clean and undamaged.
That's a fair way to put it, yeah. There's a reliance on the physical integrity of the structure.
So just to kind of recap where we've landed, it feels like nature faced this big challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Making stable blue pigment is biochemically really tough.
Right.
And instead of just giving up on blue, evolution basically said, okay, fine, if chemistry is hard, we'll use physics, we'll become master architects at the microscopic level, and we'll just build the color right into our surfaces by playing tricks with light.
That's pretty much it. The sheer abundance of blue you see out there, especially in animals, is often a testament to this incredible evolutionary work around structural coloration as a widespread adaptation to the rarity of true blue pigment.
So we've kind of gone on this journey. We started understanding why true blue pigment is rare. The chemical complexity, the energy cost. We noted those few cool exceptions, like the dayflower, maybe the bluebells under the right conditions, and those still kind of mysterious poison dart frogs and starfish.
Right, the rare pigment producers.
And then we dove headfirst into the amazing world of structural color. How everything from butterfly scales to bird feathers to beetle shells uses this incredible microscopic architecture
Tiny patterns, layers, cavities.
to scatter or interfere with light waves and create what our eyes register as blue.
Exactly. Different organisms, different strategies, but often arriving at the same visual result blue through these ingenious structural means. It really highlights how natural selection can drive these clever solutions to biological problems.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? We see this color all around us, blue, 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 and yet so often it's not actually there chemically, the way we might just assume.
Yeah, our intuition about color can be a bit off.
It's a trick of the light, literally built into the structure of the thing itself. So I guess the final thought to leave you with is, what does this mean for how we perceive color in nature generally? Is what we see always what it chemically is?
Probably not always.
What other fascinating illusions or light tricks might nature be pulling off right under our noses, playing with structure and optics in ways we haven't even fully grasped yet?
That's a great question.
It definitely makes you want to keep looking closer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And exploring the really intricate and often surprising science of how life creates the colors we see.
That wraps up another wonderful peek into the natural world. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please give us a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our future explorations. And don't forget to click the bell icon to get notified every time we upload a new podcast or video. There's always something exciting happening. For those who want to dive even deeper into nature with us, consider becoming a member of our Peek into Nature YouTube channel. You'll get access to exclusive member-only videos, cool merchandise, and even discounts on our Peek into Nature store. It's a fantastic way to support the channel and get some extra goodies in return. Thanks again for listening and being a part of our amazing nature-loving community. Until next time, keep exploring